Lovers Quarrel. It's a long, sustained quarrel.
What's going on, world?
Hey, everybody.
It's your guy, TJ, Mr. New Cool.
And it's your girl, Dani, your happy 100-year-old hippo. Because 100 is a big number.
It is.
It's
this
like
is the 100th episode.
Yes. This is like Sesame Street. Like the letter brought to you by the number 100 and the letter, I don't know. T, I don't know, whatever.
I got you. I'm picking up what you're putting down.
You take my phrase. Thank you. And welcome to another episode of Lovers Quarrel, a very special episode of Lovers Quarrel for a multitude of reasons. And you'll find out as we move along. But of course, this is our 100th episode.
Did you think we'll be here?
No, because I really thought we probably would have killed each other sometimes between now and then because Lord
I have
knows,
faith. The phone.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
I'm gonna.
But
go ahead, keep talking.
Anyway, if this is your first time listening, you know that we welcome you. If this is your second time listening, we welcome you back. And if this is your third time or more listening, then you know that you are family, or as TJ would like to call you, you are a lover. And we have a special guest with us. Say hello, special guest.
Hi, I'm the special guest.
Yes, of course, like always when we have a special guest, we're going to formally introduce him a little later in the episode, but we're very, very excited and pleased to have him on. And before we go any further, being that we are in the midst of Black History Month, TJ and I wanted to take a brief moment and give you a Black History fact. So I will go first. Yes, okay. I will go first. I had one, but I'm gonna go with this one because it kind of actually reminded me of my dad. So it says on this day when this episode drops, it'll be February 21st. Mm-hmm. So on this day, February 21st, in 1961, Otis Boykin patented the electrical resistor, and this device was used in all guided missiles and IBM computers. So shout out to
what's his name?
Otis Boykin.
Dope.
Boykin.
Yeah, I didn't even know that.
Shout out to him.
Yeah. My dad was like a computer nerd type guy. So, and he, like growing up in my house, like the first computers we ever had were IBM. So it stuck out to me. And you know, again, shout out to Black people and people of color for doing everything first and best. So
well, you went up high. I'm gonna go a little negative. Sorry.
Sorry.
So on February 21st, Malcolm X was assassinated at the young and tender age of 39.
Yes, he was.
So I knew that he was assassinated. I didn't know he was that young though. Like when you put it into context, like
that's really young,
especially
as we're speaking of people
that's
in
like
our
8 years for me. Like that's crazy. Like to think that his life was taken that quick, so and early. So
well, whenever you're trying to be an agent of change, you know,
they come at you.
Absolutely. But with that said, we're going to jump right onto our elevator. Would you like to go first, or would you like me to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay, so are you going up or down?
I'm going up.
Okay. All right, so this is the 100th episode. 100th episode, so I have to get on my best elevator voice. Excuse me. Going up.
That was good.
Thank you.
That was real good.
Thank you.
You know, as you stated earlier, it's our 100th episode. And for me, it's like, it's a great feat to be here. Mm-hmm. This started out as To Be Determined, and that bombed. And then we came back.
Did it bomb, or did it just like life happened?
I mean, it fizzled out, but it was, I mean, looking back at it, it was just, we were trying to,
replicate
we were trying to do what everyone else was doing. So
yes.
It was like, you know,
that's why
to me, it bombed. So when we came back with Lovers Quarrel, we were able to really be ourselves and talk about our problems and be as transparent, you know. Because everybody was like, oh, y'all the most perfect couple. And
far from it.
Yeah, nah, we fight, we argue, and all that good stuff we love. But, you know, with being able to do the show, it's become therapy. It allows us to talk. It allows us to, you know, it's date night sometimes. Like, I may not speak to you the whole week, but we know when we record, it's going to be our own time.
60 to 90 minutes of, like, direct conversation.
Exactly. So
uninterrupted conversation, too.
So just to be here 100 shows in and 100 shows. We had 2 live sold out shows.
Yes.
That was very scary and, you know,
stressful,
premature.
Fuck out.
But, you know, yeah, well, I mean, that happens. Like when you're creating stuff and, you know, you just want it to be good. So
I know, but you have to have like a faith. Like you were more stressed the second time than you were the first time.
Yeah, because it was a different market. So anyway, so we can go back there. But yeah, up to be on the 100th. So that's where I'm at.
What
about you?
I'm gonna continue to ride the 100 episode wave.
Okay.
And I wrote down, I was like 100 recorded moments of us fussing, fighting, and loving, because TJ and I will sometimes have been like beefing hardcore, like fuck you, don't like you, don't talk to me, but then we got to sit down and record, and then in us talking to each other, we've kind of resolved things. He and I have been good, and then get into an argument on the show, and then leave the show mad at each other. But at the same time, it's been this like really great ride. And even though sometimes there's been weeks where like I don't feel like it, I don't want to, I'm sick, life happens, from death all the way to illness to school and work and things like that, that we've really, like, this is something that I know, that this body of work, like if no one ever listens to another episode ever again, that we have this like moment in time and this like thing that we do together that is ours and ours alone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm excited by that, and it is a milestone, because I feel like I read somewhere, or maybe heard on a different podcast, that most people who start or initiate podcasts go like 6-7 episodes, or like definitely not anywhere near 100 before they tap out or they start getting inconsistent. And the fact that we've been so very consistent for this last, I guess, almost 2.5 years, because we started like late 2017. Yeah. So we're going on 3 years. I'm proud of us.
I am too. I wonder if Tatum will listen to this stuff like years from now and be like, what were they talking about?
She's probably going to be mortified. She's like most kids, they're like, oh my God, my parents, like, ugh, like, that's going to be crazy one day, because like she's going to really think that we're like kind of lame at some point or another.
How old is she?
She's 2. She'll be 3 in April. So at some point she's going to be
She's never going to think I'm lame, but
all right.
I digress.
But anyway, so she's a girl, so I'm waiting for the like middle, and I teach middle school, so I'm waiting for that time frame of her life for like.
And your middle schoolers think that you're cool because of who?
My boys think I'm cool because of you, because you keep me in the loop.
All right then.
My girls think I'm cool because I'm cool, and my boys think I'm cool too because of who I am. But you keep me in the know because you are pretty much like an 8th grade boy. Like that's all. So like
I respect it.
Your style and your taste in music and all of that stuff like that is right in line with my 8th grade.
I'm still right there.
Just that's as far as you went. That's it. So
you got it. I don't want no problems with you.
So yeah, but I mean, yeah, at some point she'll look back and be like, oh my God, but at least she'll be like, okay, my parents did this thing.
Exactly. And if podcasting still there like 15 years from now.
Yeah, what it looks like at that point. She'll be like, my parents did it kind of first. So, with that being said, we're going to go ahead.
Wait, you didn't see if our
I'm
guests...
sorry.
Come on.
My apologies.
Oh, well, yo, listen, congrats on 100.
Thank you.
That's like a big deal. It's true. That I think that's like a fact that people go up to like 6 episodes and kind of like...
Peace out.
Peace out, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So congrats on that.
No, thank you.
That's like a big accomplishment. It shows that you guys have endurance.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people, especially like a lot of people that I meet, they ask about the check before putting in the hard work. So, for you guys to do it for 100, it says a lot about the both of you.
Thank you.
And to do it as a couple.
Yeah. I think it's it's definitely like a gift and a curse sometimes, because when you're married, it's like, like you're not going anywhere, like it's like but also too, there's like some people who record podcasts together, they come together, they record, and they go their separate ways, and then me, like, we go to bed, like, so it's like, even if he gets on my damn nerves, I'm like, well shit, I gotta go lay up next to him and be like, all right, well, I'm gonna face this way tonight as opposed to talking to him. But it works, and I appreciate that. But yes, if you have you want to keep the party going up, or you want anything else?
No, I mean, I love my wife, but I would never want to work with her.
That's
fair
fair
enough.
So I give it to the both of you guys.
No, thank
you. We appreciate that. So now that we've asked our guest, we're going to jump into our relationship tip of the week. I'm going to take the lead on this one.
We always take the lead.
That is like
women's first.
Sir? Okay. Anywho, so my relationship tip of the week is to explain to explain to your partner or whomever it is. So this is for relationship, friendship, any of the ships, right? Explain to that person when it's not them and it's you when it truly is, because
I don't understand what you're saying.
because I always kind of make it a little cryptic so I can elaborate.
All right.
Right. So when you're in an intense relationship or just any type of long-term relationship, even though that person knows you really well and probably already knows this, sometimes you need to say, like, this is not about you, it's about me right now. Like, it's as far as, so thinking about earlier today when we were driving, before we drove up, we were still at home and we were talking about whatever plans we have later on tonight. And at one point you said something to the effect of, or maybe I said it about, like, you know, this is not about, I don't feel like you're trying to do anything to me, or you're trying, like, I don't feel like my anger, my frustration is about you. I'm just getting frustrated or upset in front of you. Like, so,
Gotcha.
Just kind of articulating that it's not you, it's me right now. Like, I'm in my head right now. And I think sometimes we do each other or do others a disservice by not articulating that or not saying that sometimes. It's even when you've been with somebody or in a friendship or a relationship for so long, and they probably, like I said, so that's what I mean. Like, even when they probably already know that, like, okay, Dani's just, like, TJ will be like, Dani's just having a moment. Like, this has nothing to do with me. I'm not going to trip. It's still nice to sometimes have that person tell you, like, you know what? This has nothing to do with you. This is me having a moment with myself. And then that way it's like a courtesy thing.
I got you.
And I feel like that's something that is often lost as, like, the longer you stay in a relationship or longer a friendship or even family, even, you know, kinship, over time, you feel like you don't always have to acknowledge or explain that because the person, well, they know me, they know when I act like this, but it's still nice to sometimes just say it because it's acknowledging that person is on the receiving end of your insecurity or your anxiety or your frustration with something totally unrelated to them, and that you're just kind of like addressing it. So that's what I mean by saying that, you know, no matter how long you've been with somebody or in a relationship or any type of ship, to sometimes acknowledge and tell the person, you know what, it's not you, it's me right now. And I think it would be appreciated because whatever dynamic you and I had this morning when that was going on,
I remember
something, I think maybe I said it or maybe you said it, I can't remember, but I felt better after it was said.
I feel like I said it.
Probably, you might have.
So I win.
No, that doesn't mean you win. But you still have to come with your tip, and if it's trash, I win.
No, well,
all of my tips are going to be based off of you because I'm married to you.
It's a good tip, man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I win.
No,
her tip is good. Yeah,
I know.
No, but he
It's based off of
feels
me.
as though because he is the source of my material that he therefore wins as a default. But we're married, so what else is my
It's
source?
like-
you're the inspiration.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like Big Daddy. You remember? Like, no matter what he won, I win.
And this is why I say you're a child.
That's cool.
Why all of your references are for people under like voting ages.
I'll take that. You know what?
Okay.
So mine is twofold, I guess you could say. So I'm going to say take care of yourself, but also don't lose yourself. And when I say that, I mean make sure that you're well mentally, physically, you know, be the happiest you can be. And then when I say don't lose yourself, sometimes when we are in relationships or we have our friends, we take that for granted. So we're like, she's my wife. She's going to be here forever. But she fell in love with who I was when she met me. So I got to kind of keep up that appearance. I can't become worse. So I think that sometimes we forget, or sometimes we get super comfortable. Like, well, she's married to me, so she's not going to change. Or like, you know, if I used to get fly all the time and now I'm not getting fly no more, but that's what you fell in love with. You know, it's going to change the dynamic, you know, so.
May I add that also appreciate that people grow and change, because that's something that you and I used to always have a problem with, because I used to like argue with him about, you want me to be like 17-year-old Dani again, and I'm like, I'm 30-year-old Dani now. Like, I'm not.
Yes.
It'd be bad if I was the exact same person.
I don't want you to be the exact same person, but in that context, you were more thoughtful. And as you got older, but
I had more
what I will say is
more
you
bandwidth when I was
you had
17.
more
I had
time
shit going
and
on.
yeah. So as we've matured, I've been able to look at it and say, you know what, she's changed, but the situation's changed, the time has changed. Because
Responsibilities.
no, definitely. Because like even now that I have my new job and I'm like stressed the fuck out, I'm like, I get it now. I get where she was at.
Thank you.
I can understand that so much more now. Like. She used to always say, I mean, granted, I can still work through it. Like, it's not going to, like, I'm I'm not gonna be so tired that I can't focus or anything like that. But I understand where you're coming from. So
thank you. I'm always a trailblazer. I do everything first. He complains about it, then he does it. Then he gets it.
You're older. It makes sense. You're older.
I am 8 months older than you. Watch your mouth.
You got to round that up.
Watch your mouth.
You got to round it up.
Watch your mouth.
You have to.
Watch your mouth. No, I don't.
You do.
I do not.
I was always told anything over 5 you round up. Is that still true in school? I don't know. Because you're the teacher.
I teach science.
You got it.
Thank you.
I don't want no problems.
All right. What's the word of the week?
The word of the week. I hope I don't pronounce this wrong.
I hope you don't.
How long have you guys been married?
We've been married for 7 years. March 9th.
And then together?
16 in July.
Dope.
Yeah.
It's like me and my wife.
Dope.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we should have her come on too.
Yeah.
I know you don't want to work with.
She was, but my brother's getting my daughter, and then the time shifted. So
Got you.
I understand.
yeah, she would have been here.
No, so we gotta invite her back.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
So
like
she can be on my
that.
part.
Because plus that way she can, give us, we need 2 sides of every story, right? Because there's y'all side, our side, the truth, which is our side, right? So, something like that.
You got it, Annie.
All right. So what's the word of the week?
I believe it's pronounced. I'm not even gonna try it. You know what?
You gonna look it up?
No, I have it, but she's just gonna tell you. Because you gotta spell it.
Legerdemain.
Legerdemain.
Legerdemain?
Yes.
I have not ever heard that.
Yes! Someone stumped that.
Legerdemain or Legerdemain?
Let's listen to what she says.
Legerdemain.
Is that an L or a V?
Legerdemain.
Legerdemain. Okay, give me a definition.
Legerdemain. When a magician waves his hands over a hat and pulls out a rabbit, he is performing an act of legerdemain or trickery.
Oh my God! Use that in a sentence right now.
Legerdemain. Okay.
Use it in a sentence. Because you can.
You said that the act of when he pulls
An act of
so
legerdemain or trickery, performing an act.
Like a trick, right? Oh. You trying to pull a legerdemain on my ass with this word? Like this is some trickery.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm definitely gonna just see what sticks. Okay, legerdemain.
Go ahead.
I feel like these are 2 words that
Is that a real word?
Yeah.
It's like a Harry Potter word?
Yeah.
It's SAT word.
Avada Kedavra, right? Okay, LEGERDOMAIN. Like I put ledger and domain together.
You were wrong.
Yeah.
LEGERDEMAIN.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I'll take that one because that was.
The streak has ended.
Yeah, I had a really good run, but that was a random ass word.
It was, and when I seen it, I was like, "Oh, this could be a good word."
But I want to say this: shout out to me using context clues because if I was in like 3rd grade, my teacher would have marked that right because I would have been putting words that do make sense together. Because I said what I spelled sounds similar to what it is. Listen,
cool.
I am rationalizing this because I don't like to get.
No, I get it. It's like if the clock is going down, you shoot the shot, and it goes in, but the clock already expired. I get it. It was like you were close, but you weren't there.
Anywho, well, you continue to use that word. I want you to use that word 5 times this coming week in a sentence.
All right.
So
I'm gonna find a way to bring it up.
Oh my God.
And you can remember it.
All right. Well, listen, folks, we're going to take a quick break and hear a word from our sponsor, and then we'll be back to formally introduce our wonderful guest.
Hey friend, it's time for you to ditch those workout gloves and get the grip and wrist support you deserve. What do you suggest? You need to get the Gaines Load and Lock grips by Gaines Sports Gear. They are more durable than gloves, have a non-slip grip pad that provides grip support and added wrist support unlike your traditional workout gloves, and will protect your hands from calluses. Do they come in different colors? Not only do they come in different colors, but they are available for men and women. Do yourself a favor, go to GainesSportsGear.com. And remember, a better grip equals a better lift. Embrace the process.
And as always, you know that you can get 10% off your first purchase by going to Gaines, that's GAINZ, sportsgear.com, and entering the code LOVERS10. And now, back to the show. All right, y'all. So, you've heard the sultry sounds of the voice of our guest here. And now we have the distinct pleasure of introducing our guest on our 100th episode. And we have in front of us Mr. Jonathan Mena of the Loudspeakers Network. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And we really, really appreciate you working with us and to come together and be on Lovers Quarrel. We're I'm very, very geeky.
Congrats on the 100.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
this
Like,
is-
just, it didn't even matter if it was 99 or 101. I'm very excited. We're very excited to have
this worked out very well.
Yeah.
Because I was like counting on episodes. I'm like,
We're like, oh shit, this is gonna be number 100.
So I think for 100 is special to have you on. To have for me, it was like an accomplishment. I mean, I feel like whenever we can get guests that at least for me, is like they may not know who we are, but if they even respond, it's like, oh shit, you missed every shot you don't take. So it's
Absolutely.
like
Exactly.
TJ's definitely good at shooting his shot. So
yeah.
And one of the things that we're like really big on, especially when we have guests on, is because TJ and I will always say, like, we have our unique story is our unique story, and we have our perceptions on relationships and marriage and parenting and all things adult, but that's still just our perception and our perspective. And that's why we love to have guests on, because we want to hear what their take is on certain things and how their life's experiences or their like professionally, personally have impacted their outlook on relationships, marriage, and everything under the sun, quite honestly.
And it's just great to be able to give people different perspectives, because again, the biggest thing is about the transparency. And for everybody, again, they just see that me and Dani's been together since we were in high school, but they don't see the fights. They don't see the work that it takes, and they don't understand, like, sending her a text message just to say, something nice to her can do something, just something, those small things. And then we're able to kind of talk through our problems. And then even if I feel like I'm right, I've had people who hit me up and be like, you were wrong. And
that's my favorite.
I have to be able to take.
I got it on wax now. Like,
no, definitely. But but sometimes it helps, because I may feel however, and then I'll listen back and I'll be like, damn, you was wrong here. And then it's easier, because again, when you're in your emotions, you're gonna say what you're gonna say, you're gonna do what you're gonna do. But to be able to have something where you can go listen to it, or have other people give you different opinions, because I may feel like everything I said was right, but someone else giving me a different perspective. So,
and with that being said, with you on today, I was kind of telling you beforehand when we started that we wanted the theme of our conversation today to be kind of I put 3 words together, which was love, cancer, and culture. And part of that is because you are a married man. You've been in a relationship and marriage for well over a decade. At this point, you said almost 16.
We've been married 10 years and
then
together for
15.
Okay, yeah. So you speak in our language with the long term and longevity and everything like that. And then Jonathan actually is now 2 years cancer free.
Right.
Congratulations, thank God, from testicular cancer.
Right.
And then also is a part of the Loudspeaker Network, which we're going to touch on. So we're going to kind of touch on things in that order, right? And a lot of times when we have guests, you want to give them kind of like as an icebreaker question to ease into things. And feel free to marinate on this if you need to. What is the wisest and or kindest words you have ever been told?
The wisest.
Or kindest, like what's the nicest thing someone said to you?
All right, so the wisest, my father-in-law gave me a lot of gems, like early on. And I think one of the biggest ones that I didn't understand at the time, but I understand it now, is never fight about money with your spouse. Okay. That was like one thing that always stuck in my head. And I didn't get it at the time because we were broke. Like, we were in our 20s. We were broke. We didn't have anything. We didn't know how to manage our money. We were getting like bullshit checks and like blowing them.
Understood.
So we didn't understand that. And I didn't understand that. And it took, for us to get like jobs and for her to get her job and all that. And then to see the income grow, to kind of understand like what he meant by that. And then to see other people kind of like fall to that, where they would fight about money. And I'm like, well, that's my wife. Like, it's all about transparency. Like, I'm not going to do something shady or do something with money. Because I think a lot of marriages, that's one of the things that marriages will break.
100%.
Yeah, it's just money. And
Marriage
I think
it's money, sex, kids.
Right.
Like those are some of the biggest.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we always say that. I always say if you wanna test a relationship or ruin a relationship, have a kid, and not in a negative way, but in the sense that the patience that you have to put in, the sacrifice, the change, like Dani being pregnant but going through her master's program and everything else. I got to I have a better appreciation for all women because the fact that what they can do, I can't. Like we can't have kids, they can. So it's like I have a better appreciation. I've seen her body grow bigger, and I still love her regardless of that. But I've seen I've heard of people who's like, nah, she got too big for me, and it's like, yo, she just had your child. Like, so no, definitely.
Yeah, I don't think there's a scorecard like when you're married, like because I did something means I'm up 10 points.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like we're here together. And I think that's like what a lot of people forget is that it's a team. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not like we're not stars. Like we're a team together and like we're building something for the future. And I think that's like what he kind of instilled in me at a real early age. I mean, we lost him about 5 years ago.
Sorry to hear that.
But that was like a gem that kind of like stuck. And I remember that, and I remember like how I felt, where I was, and it just stuck with me. And I didn't understand it, but now I do.
Yeah.
Got you.
I definitely think that's a big one because it's just because money's. I mean, everything costs money, so it could be such a point of stress.
Definitely.
Individually, and then when you're talking about now like a household and family and things like that, where income matters and to an extent, and keeping up your lifestyle the way that you're comfortable and your comfortability all hinges and ties upon money. But again, like you said, if you're a team, then you know that like everything I'm doing is to help the team, and the same should be for your partner.
Right.
Well, thank you. That was a nice gem to pass on to our listeners, and then for us to keep it going. So, since she's not here to speak for herself, how did you meet your wife?
I met her in college.
Nice. Where'd you go to school?
I went to Hunter College.
Okay.
Yeah, I met her in bio class. I was a horrible student. Like, I don't know why I was in any of the sciences, but I met her there, and, like the first semester we both, we were with other people.
Yeah.
And then towards the end of the semester, like, we broke up with our other,
People you were dating, yeah.
Those people don't matter anymore.
Yeah. At all.
And then I think we had like a long break, and then we took the second part of bio, and that's where we kind of like, we kind of hit it off, like, but it wasn't like, anything serious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
and
college.
then,
It's like,
yeah, and then the summer came, and we're like, oh, she's cool, and like, she thinks I'm cool, and like we hung out, and then, it just became like something official, and it was beautiful because it was like I didn't expect anything from her. She didn't expect anything from me. We were just having a good time, and I never met someone like her.
Dope.
So I think that's what like attracted me the most from her. Like she was about, her schooling. Like I was there more to like have fun and kind of like try to figure out what I wanted to do. And like she was like, she knew what she wanted to do, and she did great in those classes. I did horrible. Like
she didn't help you out, or she couldn't help you? You were.
Yo, actually, you know what?
Beyond help.
I think the first semester I asked her for some notes, and she never gave them to me. And like to this day, she's like, "No, you didn't come those days that I had the notes." And I'm like, I never saw those notes.
See, you're not gonna fight about money. You're gonna fight about them bio notes. You're gonna be like, you know what? Like you could have helped me out. You could have looked out. That's cool. I think it's always nice when it's like really organic. TJ and I, we met because his cousin went to my high school, and long story short, my friend had a crush on his cousin, and so I was the friend who was like, come with me so I can run into George, blah blah blah. And in turn, like we were at a basketball court on 110th Street, and he walks in, and I thought he was the goofiest thing I've ever seen, and then that was kind of like the beginning of all of this.
I wasn't goofy, first off.
Okay. You say tomato, I say tomato.
I'm just saying, I wasn't goofy.
Perception is reality, right?
I guess.
That's you walked in the.
You hear? Yeah.
I am, but you walked in. I thought you looked goofy.
That's cool.
But anyway,
you got it.
That's your story. It just kind of went from there, and then and then it's like I'm gonna ride this thing till the wheels fall off, and then here we are, 16 years later. They never fallen off. And you said though that your wife was a unlike anyone else that you've ever met before at that point in your life. So how did you know that your wife was like the one? How did you know like she was like, all right, you're it, I don't want anybody else?
Well, I don't think I can think of I don't think I could think of life without her. Is what it is. Like I don't think
That's
my
fair.
life would be better without her. You know, like it's a team. For us, it's a team. Like we're here. Like she's my ride or die, and like I don't know like rap bullshit. Like, like she's my ride or die, and I think, you know, there wasn't like one particular thing that happened. I think it's just been a lot of things that have proven like, yo, we're here for each other, and you know, I can't think of life like without her. Like,
That's fair. I can share the same sentiments. For me, it's like that is kind of my meter. Like me and Danny are beefing. I'm still like, I love her. Like we can be like at war, but I'm still like you said, I couldn't imagine life without her. Like I wouldn't want to be beef with anybody but her. Like I couldn't imagine beefing with somebody else. So I can definitely understand that.
Yeah, for me it was always, I knew, so like we were, you know, again, we were teenagers, you know, when we met, and while it was a little like jarring and scary in the beginning, but TJ was just like, to be 17, 18, 19 years old, and he was like so sure about how he felt about me. Because, you know, and I mean, not to completely like put guys all in the same bucket, but especially at that age, just like, I want to date, I want to play the field, I want, you know, I say one thing, I mean another. But TJ was always just like, nope, you're it. Like, and was very like explicit and direct about how he felt about me. And so sometimes it was like a little scary, because I'm like, you're my first boyfriend.
my man right here. Yeah.
Listen, for me, it was like I was lucky.
Shoot or shoot, right?
Yeah, exactly. I was lucky she was there, and she was perfect for me. So it was just like, and I always say, I've seen, like, you know, my cousins, my friends go through these things, go through these different issues, and they may have a perfect girl, but they're treating them bad because of society tells us as a man you're supposed to explore. But if I have something that's perfect, why even test it, you know? So for me, it was easy. Like, she never made it hard or anything like that. I was still able to be myself. I can be as goofy as I want. I can go out. During Valentine's Day, right before Tatum was born, I went to All-Star Weekend.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, other friends, girls, like when I speak to them, they were just like, I would never, but Danny's never stopped me from.
Bye, have fun.
She even gave me like a nice little packet, some ones to go to the strip club if you went. Like, so for me, it was just like, when you find something perfect, why even test it, you know? So, can I do some of the questions, or you gonna do them all?
No,
I'm
you
just
got
asking,
it. You got it.
because you was taking all of them.
I apologize. I realized that after I asked like the third one. My bad. Go ahead.
Okay. How has marriage changed you?
I think it's made me a better person. It's centered me. I think before I was kind of not in a good place, in the sense where I knew what I wanted to do with my life. You know, it's weird, because like when you're young, when you're a teenager, like you have all these dreams, but there's no plans behind it. So it's like, yeah, like, you know, people in my family are like, yeah, maybe you should become a doctor. And I'm like, yeah, I guess I'll become a doctor. But it's like, you got to put a lot of hard work into that. So
that's how you ended up in that bio class.
Yeah,
right?
that's how I ended in that bio class, because I'm like, let me try this out. So, you know, just to go back to your question, I think it's made me a better person, because I have like someone else that's pushing me, that wants me to be a better person. And vice versa too. Like, you know, I'll push her, she'll push me. And it's kind of like that. That's the type of relationship that I think benefits me in the long run, and it's benefited her. And I think that's the reason why we're together for 10 years, where I know other people who, like, they haven't been together for 10 years. Like, my marriage has outlasted my mom and my dad's first marriage, you know. And there's a couple other ones that we've outlasted. And it's like, we're not doing anything that I think is difficult.
Yeah, like revolutionary.
It's just like we're here for each other. We talk, like, you know, one thing that's big is like knowing the difference between like quality time versus time together. So like, you know, sometimes like sometimes we'll mistake like time together as quality time. So like maybe watching TV together, like that's just time together. That's not like quality time. Like, so sometimes what we like to do is just kind of like turn off the TV, like just let's talk, you know, and then we'll like realize we've been talking for a couple hours, you know, and it's kind of like I call it a check-in. Like every so often we got to have a check-in. We're like, yo, what's going on? Like, how are you feeling? You know, because it's like we're getting older.
Definitely.
You know, and like the plan is to like die
together.
Yeah.
I mean, so me and Dan, we always say that relationships is not a job, but it's work. Like, and I think that's the difference. I think a lot of people don't understand the work that goes into it. I think a lot of people get married because of like the reception, like
the party.
That's all they think about. And then they have this big party, spend all this money, and then they realize they don't really like each other, or they're not going to work with each other,
or they've ignored like massive red flags.
Yeah.
Like, and
you are so right.
And we've like, because we've had some friends who've like, you know, they've gotten married and gotten divorced since we've been married, and that it like there were red flags or or things that came out of left field that like because they weren't transparent and honest with each other, one or both of them. And I think the point about like paying attention to the signs and not just trying to, and then also trying not to fit into some type of mold or societal norm of like, okay, well now you're 27, so you should be married and start trying for families. That, it's like, no, like everybody moves at their own pace. And one thing, that TJ and I especially used to get when we like were in college and like right out of college, like, oh yeah, so high school sweethearts, oh that's so cute, oh we love it. And we're like, and we to this day we're always like, yeah, we're the exception, not the rule. Like, please, like, this is what happened and it worked out for us. This is not what
exactly
we set out to for. I said, but it is what it is. And but don't let that us be a model for what you think you should be doing. And there were still like so many bumps along the way and crossroads that we had to come to about whether or not we keep going forward or we go our separate ways. But when we were willing to like put in the work. And I also like what you touched on about it being about spending time together, like time together versus quality time, because I probably used to be a subscriber of like, well, we're in the same room, so we're spending time together. But understanding like that, it kind of brings back to like even this podcast has been 100 times where we have sat down and like phones are on silent, there's no TV, no baby, no nobody else. Or
more recently, Tatum's been a guest.
Tatum has definitely been trying to be a guest co-host on the show sometimes because she won't stay in her room. But but having those like moments of conversation where we get to talk about how we're feeling, what's going on in our world, what's happening in the world around us, but it's just doing it in front of our microphone. But it still works for us because we leave the table knowing each other a little bit better, clearing things up that maybe like all the days leading up to that when we record it not making sense or us being upset or miscommunication. So I really feel like that's important. So thank you for that.
What challenges have you and your wife faced like since being married?
I guess like changing the direction in our life.
Okay.
So, I think for her, going to another job was something big for her. Like,
you're speaking our language.
Yeah. I think leaving something that she was comfortable in to take a chance, and it worked for her. I think that's what it is. I think for me, one of the challenges was like still trying to figure out, this whole podcasting thing, and then kind of things that happened in the past with shows that I've produced and all that, and kind of like having this point in life, like should I keep doing this? Like, so I think those have been like the major challenges, like I would say in like the last like 5 years.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think, and like part of why we kind of had that like inside joke snicker is because like that's
Dani's situation right now. I'm sorry I'm cutting you off.
Do your thing.
That's her situation right now, and Dani's always been very like particular in how she does things. Like everything has to kind of go a certain way, and she doesn't like change. So like if we said we gotta, if
abrupt change.
If a party's at 8:00, she wants to be there at 7:50.
No, I don't. Go ahead.
So with this, she got sick, and so first step back. As a teacher, I've learned that like it's like a sin for them to like call out or anything like that. So my wife will literally like she gets up at like 5:30 in the morning. She may not come home until
God
5:30 at night, but then she still come home. She got to be a parent. She still got, the teachers do a lot. So, but I think Dani got sick, and when she got sick, she kind of had like a realization, like, I can't do this forever. Not saying anything bad about teaching, but she kind of wanted to make changes. So then she applied, got the job, and this is how Dani always is. Whenever she applies for stuff, she always gets it for the most part. So she applies for the job, and then now the crossroad is she's going to have to like leave her kids earlier. So she's sad about it, but she's also happy. But it's like she's at that crossroad because it's like this is going to be a whole different change for her.
Right.
And I'm always telling her, like, this is what you wanted, so you got it. Like,
but it's hard. I mean, listen, I'm
I get
Cancer. I'm sensitive about my shit. I'm always in my feelings.
That's fair.
And it's so hard to not, especially like this. This is a field where like relationships are so crucial to getting the job done, of educating, and the time and effort spent, like, and these kids deal with a lot of like, if people like abandon them, education in America is like leaves a lot little to be desired, because people come in and they'll be like, oh, this is not for me, and they'll leave 2 months into the job, 6 months into the job, and so like you'll have kids who have not had a consistent teacher for 3, 4, 5 years. So now, I swore like that. I'm just somebody who I always finish what I started. That's what it is. So that is where it gives me like anxiety and frustration, because I want to enjoy it, but I don't want to not at the expense of my kids feeling like I've abandoned them. But that's why I go to therapy, and my therapist gave me some gems on Friday.
No, definitely.
And about how to like approach it, and how it's an opportunity for me to model how success doesn't always come in the way that you expect it to, and also about being accountable, like especially like my core group of kids that like they have my number, we talk all the time, that like when I say I'm gonna be there, I can still be present for them, and show that just because I'm not there every day with you physically doesn't mean I'm gone forever. And I think that it's and that's the thing, like I think that it's important to have a partner who will encourage you and push you and remind you of like all the good things that you're doing, or the reasons why you made the decision that you did, because sometimes you get, we all get in our own heads sometimes, so then you're like, oh my God, you're reeling from it. But I'm grateful for that. This is not my interview, this is yours. Because clearly I can talk a lot. So you have an 8-year-old daughter.
I do.
Yes. And we have an almost 3-year-old daughter, and like TJ was saying, like children, game changers, right? And for you, if you had to describe it, how do you feel like having a child when you had your daughter, and since the 8 years since, how's that impacted the equation that is you and your wife?
Well, for one, time has gone by so fast.
Yes, it does.
Like that's the one thing I didn't expect, for time to go by this fast. So, she's 8, she's in 3rd grade. And we're like, where's she going to high school? Which is like a crazy thing to say. Like, she's only in 3rd grade.
Oh, we do that all the time.
Yeah, I'm like, why am I thinking about high school right now? But I'm thinking about high school.
Exactly, yeah, because you blink and now she's like in 3rd grade.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
So, I think the dynamic has gotten better. We've gotten closer. I think the dynamic was always moving in that direction where we wanted to have a kid, and we had my daughter, and it's good. Like, there's that bond, there's that connection. I don't think like it's changed too much in the sense where like, if we didn't have a daughter, we wouldn't be close. Yeah. But I think it's definitely made us a lot closer.
Was there like an adjustment period for you guys where you had to, we're still kind of early, still the early years. So,
right.
Thinking if you kind of could think back on like bringing home baby, infancy, toddlerhood, where did you have like those growing pains of like adjusting to that life? Because that was something that TJ and I really kind of struggled with like in the beginning, because I wanted him to do more, and I felt like he wasn't, and he was like not getting why I was like always tired.
Right.
So
yes and no. We had different expectations, and also my mother always said how my father did whatever. So Dani thought it was gonna be the same thing, but that was one of the times that I think me and Dani did not have like a clear like conversation. We weren't transparent about what she would think she would need versus, and we had to, we met at a crossroad, and she expressed that, and then you make the changes. Because my thing was like, I'm gonna get in where I fit in. Like, if I see that I need to pick up Tatum, I'll pick her up, stuff like that. But I think Dani was, because my father would take care of the mornings, my mother would do the nights type situation. So she had an expectation.
I had the mornings and the nights and the afternoons. So
well, you was also home majority of the day, but I would come home and I would take Tatum. But you were expecting me to do what the stories you heard.
Yes, I
and
did.
That was an unfair thing because again, we never had those type of conversations. So
fair.
you were holding me accountable for something that I had no idea I was being held accountable for.
With that being said, how did you guys deal with that?
I think if you have help, like reliable help, I think you should accept it. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, like that. It takes a village. Line is like that's like facts.
100%.
Hardcore facts.
Right there. And then my next advice is like to make time for yourselves, like the both of you.
Yeah. Did you have the, like, I mean, not saying any like similar to us, but like, did you guys have to go those growing pains of like parental growing pains?
I didn't expect, like, I didn't know what to expect when I had my daughter. You know, she didn't sleep like much
At all.
Yeah, like she didn't sleep at night. She was like kind of fussy at first. So like that sleep deprivation plus like having an infant in your house, and like that was just a lot. So like my mom would come through and she would bring food, and like I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna go sleep right now. And we would just knock out. But it's tough. Like I don't understand how like some people have a kid and like they're not in their life. Like I have, there's certain people I know who are like, they're not there, and I'm like, how can you do that? Like,
I agree with you.
Yeah.
just off the fact that like there's so much to do. It's like
Yeah.
such a little person.
Yeah, like you got to keep them alive. Like I remember that part when she was, I mean, even now, but like especially when she was like little. You're talking like the first days, weeks, months home, and
Oh yeah, I used to like.
and I'm like, yo, I have to keep this human alive.
It's scary.
100%.
Like,
I used to like, if she was sleeping, I would go in there.
Check
and I
her
would
breathing?
Like, yeah, I would check her
Yeah,
breathing,
yeah.
but I would like move her to make sure that she's gonna move because I've heard about like SIDS and stuff like that.
Because I'm like, she's asleep, let her sleep.
Yeah, but I like, to me, like, this is our first time, so I'm still kind of like, nah, she's too quiet. Like,
Yeah, my
so-
daughter, I think like a month in, she slept through the night one night, and we didn't sleep
yeah.
because we were like, something's wrong. So like every couple of minutes, we would get up and like check to make sure she was like alive.
Yeah, I know
Yeah.
the feeling. Yeah, one time she slept through the night, and like and it might have been like, and through the night, when you have an infant, it's like 6 a.m. and like it's been like 6 hours or something. I think I damn near jumped out my skin, because I didn't, like when how you're asleep and you're like, in your brain you're like, wait a minute, I'm feeling a little too rested, and like almost like when your alarm doesn't go off or something like that. So when that happened, I like flew out of the bed and went into her room and found her, and I was like, okay, everything's fine now. But I'm right there with you. Well, thank you for that. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna like switch gears, right? So we kind of covered who is Jonathan Mena as the husband and father, and now we're gonna kind of talk about your cancer diagnosis and that, and how that ties into your relationship. We had already kind of touched on like how we both have had like personal experiences with cancer in our lives with our loved ones, and when you first got your diagnosis, what were like some of the first thoughts that went through your head?
It was fast. Like it was real fast. I got a lump in my testicle. I was watching TV like late night, and I just got up and like my hand grazed my testicle, and like I felt something there, and it felt like those little rubber 25-cent balls you get at the supermarket. So I didn't think anything of it. Like, the first thing you do is WebMD. So I forget what it said, but I didn't think anything of it. And then it just started to grow, and then my back started to hurt. And then my wife was like to go down to the doctor, and I went, and like I don't cheat on my wife, but I'm like, man, this is like something in my testicle. Like my concern was like, damn, she's gonna think I'm like cheating on her, like it's some STD or something like that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's what I was more concerned about. Like,
Like,
but,
I don't want her thinking I stepped out on her.
yeah, I'm like, I'm out here being dirty or something.
No, yeah. I see. I would think like like ingrown hair, like, you know what I mean, like, because you could, like, those can be painful, especially. So I get that. And then Well, I'll take this next one and then.
Go ahead.
And my next question
You can lead.
was about this because, and I wrote this question because I kind of thought about my dad. Were you, like, once you knew what it was, were you more scared or angry? Because my dad was angry at first, and he was like such a slow to anger man. So the fact that he was so very angry when he found out, because he was stage 4 at that point when he found out. So I guess that was like my question for you, just to kind of get some insight.
I was like, I just want this out. Like, I knew the prognosis. You know, my wife is a nurse.
Yes.
So, you know, she kind of broke it down for me. And I knew, you know, she's like the best person to have in my corner. But I just wanted it out. My biggest concern, like, after that was there was a chance that I might have to do chemo. And that's what I was focusing on, like preparing myself. Like, if I have to do chemo, you know, how to explain this to my daughter. Like, because I pick my daughter up. I drop her off and I pick her up. So, you know, I'm not going to be there for that part. So it was kind of like mentally preparing myself for that part.
Okay.
If it did happen. And luckily it didn't happen. I don't know. I felt like that whole year was weird, just from like a professional life, like relationship and all that. And then just to kind of get cancer and then have surgery and then I'm fine was kind of like, it just came out of nowhere, you know? It just kind of felt very quick.
Yeah. Was it kind of surreal?
Yeah, at times it was, you know, at times, because I never had surgery before. And then, you know, looking back, I thought like, damn, like, all right, so it was like testicular cancer, but what if this was, you know, something inside and I didn't know and I had let it grow and all that. Like, so I kind of felt lucky in a sense where I caught it early, but then scared, like, it could have been something inside.
Yeah, definitely.
You know?
Oh, yeah. So my father, he had prostate cancer and they caught it like real early. And it was, but he had the option. He could have gotten chemo or they could have taken it out. And they was like, if you take it out, these are the issues or whatever. But by taking it out, it pretty much guarantees that it won't come back. But if we do the chemo and then it does come back, then I think they wouldn't have been able to operate on them. So my mother was like, take it out, like do that. But I think it was like fear of like not being able to like keep an erection or stuff like that. Like it was more of a like, I guess the ego thing, masculinity thing, like, damn, I got to do this. But yeah, he wound up removing it and he's been cancer free for, is it 7 years? 6 years?
Because it happened right after we got married.
Yep.
So 2013. Yeah. So my dad had something internal. So it was stomach cancer, but it had like metastasized to his like liver and lungs, and you know, it was just so it went everywhere. And you know, part of I think why my dad was so angry at the time was because he was kind of like, he'd always been kind of like very like a quintessential man of like, he went to the doctor when like my parents are divorced, but when they were together, like my mom was like the one who was like, take your ass to the doctor, go every year. It's like she kind of prodded him about the appointments. So then after they got divorced, he kind of like those things fell by the wayside. But then this was like the one time when he you know, months back, he had not been feeling well, so he kind of was going to the doctor, and they were sending him to like a specialist here, but because he didn't like have, which I still sometimes get annoyed with thinking about this, which is like he didn't really know his family history as well. So because had he spoken on it, they probably would have maybe directed him to like an oncologist sooner. And because I'll never forget, we sat in the oncologist's office, and it's like me, my sister, and Tatum, who was like 5 months old at this point, and we like drove up to New York, and we're in there with them, and we're like, he was like, they're asking like in a family history, and I'm like, didn't Grandpa have cancer when he died? And then like I'm on the phone with my mom, and even though my parents have been divorced for now like almost 8-9 years or whatever, my mom was like giving like the entire family tree of like, every man on this side of the family had cancer. How does your father not remember this? And like that part was the part that really like I think pissed him off, because he was like, I kind of was doing what I was supposed to do, as like going to the doctor, and then they were missing. They were sending him on like a wild goose chase, and now it's terminal, you know?
You found it out very quickly. Was there anyone that you were like, excuse me, that it was like hard for you to tell, or that you were like worried about telling that you had cancer?
My daughter,
okay.
For one, you know, my parents, my mother-in-law, they were like real concerned because you hear cancer, you think the worst.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was being optimistic. Like that's just how I am.
Yeah.
So I knew like whatever it was, like even if I had to do the chemo, like I was gonna get ahead of all of it. But telling them was hard.
Got you.
And then I think I messed up when I told my daughter where I was like, it's I have cancer, I might have to do this, but I'm not gonna die. And then she kind of took that the wrong way because she was like, oh, like I guess she figured like my dad could die.
Yeah.
So, she took it hard, and she was like, I think in kindergarten.
Yeah.
But those were like the hard conversations that
definitely.
I regret having to have them in the first place because I got cancer.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
I wouldn't even.
it's
That'd have been tough.
yeah, when you're that little, because I mean, shit, I was 30 and I was like, the fuck you mean my dad has
See, thinking about
cancer?
that, I don't know if I would have told Tatum like I had cancer. I may have been like, I'm sick, daddy's sick, and he's gonna need. I don't know if I would have went. I don't know.
Oh.
I just wanted to be transparent.
No,
Yeah.
that makes sense. I definitely think you need to be transparent. But I'm just thinking like right now, like maybe my subconscious is like she's not gonna understand what it is, but Tatum knows so much at 2, so maybe I would be able to tell. But
Yeah,
that's a
we
tough
gotta
one.
give credit. We gotta give kids credit for being
100%.
way more in tune with what's going on
Right.
around them than we don't give them enough credit for. And sometimes their memories are long. Like they'll bring stuff up, and you're like, how do you remember that? Or like,
Right.
how do you even know this? And so I fully understand that and it's such a difficult conversation to have. Period. And then when you explain it to your child, and when you're that little, especially like your parents are your world. Like the sun rises and sets on us, and then like I could see like how maybe death wasn't even like in her brain, her part of the equation until you brought it up. So now she's like, wait a minute, what do you mean?
Right.
So I can definitely understand that. So one thing I want to kind of touch on too with you is about now with like your relationship, because you have your wife who is, I think specifically is an oncology nurse,
Right.
and you're diagnosed, and even though it was a kind of like a swift time period, it's still very intense. It's emotional. There's still uncertainty, and my question is then, did you notice a shift in your relationship? How did you cope with that shift? Because briefly speaking on our experience, like when my dad got sick, like it kind of we went through it because of my attentions and energies and things being focused on everything else but us. So for you, what did that happen, or how did you guys like cope together as individuals?
I think there was like no time to really process our feelings at the time. It was more like, yo, this is the problem. This is what we have to do. There's a really good oncology doctor that didn't have an appointment for I think 2 months. And she just put on her, her lab coat and all that. And she just went up to the office and she's like, I'm so-and-so. And then I got an appointment a few days later, So like there was no real time to kind of process the feelings. And I felt like afterwards is when we kind of like had that time to really get in our feelings bag. Like, yo, this is what happened. This is probably how it happened. Kind of, I never really focused on my health at that point. Like I was, I just didn't.
A guy.
Yeah, I was just being a guy. I was drinking, I was smoking, I was, I wasn't focused on my health. Like you don't think of mortality. At least I didn't think of my mortality at that age. Like I wasn't like, I didn't have a lot of people who passed. Like everyone who passed was like either very old. I never had any like young friends who passed.
Yeah.
So kind of like out of sight, out of mind.
I mean, I knew death was possible, but I'm like, I didn't.
But when I say that, I mean like because you had no other references close in your age, so it's kind of like
It was like a distant memory, distant thought. Like,
yeah, and also I'm like, I'm like, how can I get cancer? That was one of my biggest feelings. I'm like, how did I get cancer? I'm like,
me?
Yeah, this is like the weirdest thing. Like, it's just, it came really out of nowhere.
Definitely. Did you find that your wife being an expert in the field of what you were dealing with, was that always a blessing or sometimes a frustration? Because what I wonder is that sometimes, you know, when somebody's like super knowledgeable in an area, that they can kind of like over explain, or sometimes like it's hard for them to take the professional hat on and put like the like I'm your wife or I'm your husband hat on in the situation. So like did y'all have any of those experiences?
No,
or was it
I'm
just
like,
always like
explain everything. Yeah, like tell me
Good.
everything. Like I want to know everything.
good?
So she didn't, you know, she
hold
didn't
back.
bite any words. She like told me what it is, you know. And at that same time too, like my friend Reggie, Combat Jack, had cancer. So, you know, she's kind of breaking it down, like what was going on with him. And at times I felt guilty. I'm like, you know, I'm going through my shit and he's going through his. And like, you know, we had a little network of people who were like with him, kind of taking care of him. And then I had to step back. And my wife had to step back because I got sick. So felt a lot of guilt behind that, which I don't know. I'm still trying to process all that.
It's definitely, it's a lot to process. And, you know, I had, so like my cousin, my dad's niece, she is a nurse, and she works, well, she's like kind of like the head ER nurse, I think, or whatever, but she was the one who had to like break it down for me and my sister. She was like, and for us, it was more like, yo, just like love on your dad as long as you can, because she was very transparent. She was like, this is not going to end well. And I did appreciate it, because it was like, okay, at the very least, like I'm hearing this from someone who I know like also loves my father, but it's also like still a hard pill to swallow, is particularly with our outcome, because I'm like, okay, this is like, you know, and being like a typical millennial, like as soon as like I heard that like why he was in the emergency room, I did all of the Googles and like WebMD and everything like that, and I was like, fuck, like, and like so I kind of knew, but like she solidified it. But I just know sometimes like when someone is like the resident expert, it can be like a blessing, but sometimes it can also be like a curse, because it's like almost too much information. But I'm glad that in your case it worked out, and it was like what was well received as well.
Yeah, and she was an advocate. Like I've never felt that I can get like finessed at the doctor, which happens sometimes.
Yes,
like, you know, people will lie to you or they'll tell you what they want to hear, because, you know, people are emotional.
Absolutely.
And, you know, like I put myself in sometimes their place, and I could see why they would tell someone a lie just to kind of like get them like past it, but no one was gonna bullshit her. Like she was on her like
Our P's and Q's.
Yeah.
She was like, that's what that bio class was for.
Yeah.
Every other class since then, so I could be in this moment right now, holding down my husband.
Right.
Exactly. Look at God. See? Look at that.
So with being cancer free now for two years, what advice would you give to like men about cancer or just about their health? Because Danny will always say like, if I get a paper cut, I would get it checked. So
yes.
I just always grew up that like anything that isn't normal, I'm just gonna get it checked. Like I'm not gonna wait. You know, I had like a
hypochondriac.
Yeah, that's what my wife likes to say. But I don't know. I get it from my mother. My mother was always like, today she was giving my daughter grapes. I was like, you know, don't forget to cut it. So she cut it in half, and then after a while, she was looking at it. She was like, should I cut it in 2s or 4s? I'm like, 2s would be fine. And then I knew it as soon as she asked that, she was gonna cut it in 4s, and then she went and cut it in 4s. So that's always been my thing. So I'm always like, if something's out of place, I just gotta go get it checked. Just so, yeah.
I think the history is important, like what you touched on. There's a lot of people who don't know their family history when it comes to illness, and that's important.
You're right,
because then you can be on a prevent instead of just going like being on the defense for it. So I think that's real important. And then, you know, go to the doctor. Like go get if you're out here like drinking, like smoking a lot of weed and all that, like go to the doctor at least once a year. Like go get checked out, go get a blood exam.
Definitely get a physical. Every year.
At least go get a physical. Go to the dentist. You know, go do all that, because they can catch stuff too.
Yeah, I have a this is like totally unrelated, but like I have a student right now, and he has this like massive growth on his neck, and it's like, and like I've like he had it like starting in December, and it's just gotten exponentially bigger to the point now where he like it hurts for him to turn his head that way, and he's like, and I'm like, you know, student, like what's your mom saying? Like, when are you getting this looked at? When are you getting checked on? And basically, it actually it's something connected with like whatever's going like periodontal, like with his teeth or his gums and stuff. And so it's like, I mean, I think ultimately it just has to be drained. Like, I don't think it's cancer. I gather it's not cancerous, but it's frustrating for me, like, as like looking at him as my student, but then also like the mom and me too. I'm like, oh my God, like this should have been rectified,
dealt with
in December when he first like started having it. But I also know that like this, you know, the mom, I feel like, you know, is also doing the best that she can, and like there's appointments, and then there's like, you know, depending on like healthcare and like the level, the quality of the healthcare that they have. But I'm also looking at this like 13-year-old boy with like this cyst the size of like a grapefruit on the side of his neck, and it's also like messing with his head as far as like insecurity, and like, you know, he doesn't want, you know, he keeps walking with like his hoodie kind of like wrapped like this. So, you know, thankfully like his friends are good about it, but it's just like that, getting that stuff checked so that way you don't have to. So like it's like whatever he has to get done, he has to get this drained, and he has to now deal with whatever's going on in his mouth, because like it's apparently it's like connected. And, you know, again, not an expert, but I agree with that, like knowing the history, making sure that you're going everywhere else. And I'm like a big advocate for like not only physical health but mental health and wellness too.
Right.
It's like go, because the same way you go for a physical every year, so there's a baseline, so people can say, okay, when shit isn't right, now they can say, well, everything was fine, and then all of a sudden in 2020
Something
this
happened.
changed. So now you have like a point of reference, but also too with like your mental health, because I've in more recent times had very close friends deal with like mental health crisis, but because, you know, therapy is now kind of becoming more open and upfront with it, but you know, in years past it was very like hush hush or taboo, that there's no like baseline. And I'm watching her and her family and us as her circle go through the motions of getting her where she needs to be, and getting kind of back to square one with her mental health and wellness. But, you know, hindsight being 2020, there were signs, but we didn't know because nobody had a baseline.
That's real important.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you being like super transparent about your experience, and because we've talked with people about so many different things as far as like how it impacts relationship, but we have never talked about how like someone's sudden change in health can impact a relationship, because it really can take a toll. And, you know, I know that you had your experience, but you were also very fortunate that it was kind of like almost in a vacuum of sorts, where like it was recognized, it was early, it was dealt with, and you've been well since then. But even still, like, do you have like a thought in the back of your head about it coming back, or about?
Oh yeah, like when I get a little pain or something like that.
Did I sleep wrong, or is my back hurting?
Yeah, something like that. You know, or if something's swollen, I'm like, oh, I gotta go back. So I'm like on top of like my appointments and all that stuff, and just, you know, in general, just taking better care of myself.
Yeah, I saw you did
I did a 10K.
A 10K. I saw that. That was congratulations.
Thank you.
How was that?
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was saying, how was that?
Oh, it was good. I trained for it. Like I did my thing, and you know, I'm gonna run a race every month leading up to the Brooklyn Half Marathon, which is in May. And then I got to run a few more races, and then I'll get a spot in the marathon next year.
Wow. Oh, yeah, because you have to, like, qualify, right?
Yeah, you got to do, like, 9 races and volunteer one, so...
Well, yeah, one of my line sisters, she did the, Yodi, she did the New York City Marathon, I think, a couple of years ago, but I remember she had to do all the ones that, like, qualify for it.
Right.
I did the Baltimore Half Marathon a couple of years ago. I did not train for it.
How'd you do?
I fucking sucked, you know. I did it. I did it because my other line sister was doing it to like honor. She was kind of on her health kick, and she did it to honor her grandfather who had passed recently from Alzheimer's, and nobody would do it with her because everybody's like, "Bitch, I ain't doing a half marathon." So I was
13 miles.
Yes, and so I was like trying to be a good sorority sister, trying to, you know, being like, "All right, I'll do it with you." And I never knew Baltimore was that fucking hilly, and until I was like, oh my God. Like, so it took me like, I was like just under like 4 hours or something like that, but I finished, and I was sore as fuck afterwards.
How'd you feel? Like,
physically terrible, but I was like proud of myself, because I said, okay, I'm like, I can go the rest of my life saying I did a half marathon. Did I run it? No. But did I walk it, power walk it, like felt like I was dying sometimes. Ate the little like Gatorade chews. Like it was definitely like I got a glimpse into this like culture of like running that I had never been a part of and never have been since. But I have an appreciation for it because I'm like, you know, and I was trying to be a good friend, you know. So I'm like I did it with her, so she wasn't totally alone.
Right.
So it was a very cool experience. I got the really nice heavy metal. It was shaped of a crab because of course Baltimore. But
Do you know what that medal is?
yes, it's in the house.
Okay. Okay.
Somewhere in the house. Right
So
now.
that means,
I used to have it hung up before I started teaching. I used to have it hung up at my like desk at my old job. But then when I started teaching, I was like, yeah, I don't know. I couldn't remember where I put it. Now I have, you know, Tatum's work up there. So just as monumental a prize of her daycare.
Well, congrats.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And good luck to you in your future
Yeah, thank you.
endeavors. So we're going to do our final shift. And talk to you a little bit about your life in the podcast industry, right? So, we would be poor interviewers if we didn't do a little homework and stuff. So the other day you tweeted, right? Somebody asked about what was the title of your memoir, and you said, "My mom doesn't understand what I do for a living, so I just tell her I fix computers,"
Right.
which I definitely chuckled at. So how would you, you know, for us who a little bit more savvy than I fix computers, how would you want to describe what you do within like the podcasting world?
What do I do? So, right now, nothing, because I'm taking a small break from podcasting. But I produce podcasts, so I scout talent. I either come on to an existing one, or you know, we'll just develop it from the ground floor, and that's everything from, you know, finding the photographers, the producers, editors, like the whole shebang. Like if you got a good idea, I'll come and we'll make it happen.
Got you. How did you like before podcasting was like kind of? So I feel like it's one of those words that like. Same way people say like toxic and triggered in 2020 and 2019, like podcast is another one of those words. So like, how did you kind of find your way into this field?
Community.
So I originally went to school and I was doing journalism in school. So that kind of like pivoted to being very active on social media. And from there I met most of the guys from the Combat Jack show. And they were still internet radio at the time. And they were like, they needed help. And I reached out to them and they hit me back. And then I was like, I never left.
Got it.
And then I was just kind of like,
shoot.
yeah, I was like in the mix. And then, you know, one thing, they had me on one show and then that one kind of fizzled out. And then they brought me on for the Combat Jack show. And, you know, for one like real specific thing, just to edit it. But I'm like, yo, you guys need this, you need that. So like, let me do that for you. And then I never left. Like, that's the thing. You got to make yourself valuable.
That's I say all the time. Like you got to leverage the skills that you do have.
Right.
When I first started teaching, I like was a career change, and I'm teaching special education to elementary students. I'm like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing, and but I made myself like useful in other ways because at the time when I started teaching, I was like one of the relatively the youngest person in the building, so I knew how to like work the smart board and with relative ease and things like that. So I was like. So I became like the tech person at my school, and my principal appreciated that because that way I was like, okay, so if I kind of like suck or like I'm not great in these areas, I'm like useful in these areas. So they're gonna keep me on and not fire me because I'm good at these things. And then I'm like, and that way I can work on getting better at like being a teacher.
Right.
So
because the talent gets you in the door, but the hard work
keeps you there.
Yeah, keeps you there.
Definitely.
Yeah.
What are your greatest podcast moments, experiences?
Oh man. I got a bunch. You know, I think all of them happened like after the show. You know, like a lot of Combat Jack show moments that we should have like recorded. We didn't because we were just like having fun and just kind of like talking about like life after the show. You know, it was like a brotherhood, man. Like those guys, I'm real tight with them. Like now, I mean, we fight like as you know, friends do. But I think like kind of what we built and the legacy for that particular show, and you know the way it ended wasn't how any of us imagined, but I think what we built in those years was like I don't think anyone's come close to doing, and I hope someone does like their own version of it. Like don't do that one, but do like your own for it. And I, you know, if we did anything that you can take from it is like we gave a blueprint, so like if you can take it, like do it.
Yeah, because I mean, I feel like, you know, everybody knows loudspeakers. Like, if you have to be living under a rock to be in this, like, community, this industry, whatever you want to call it, and not know that. But I think that there's like definitely a sense of like trailblazing that you guys did, and setting the tone for everything that has come. But with that being said, like, you know, so much podcasting has blown up and changed and morphed over the last few years. So what are some things that maybe like frustrate you about the landscape that or like from you talk from like the beginning to now, or just anything about this whole kind of podcasting world? Is there anything that like frustrates you about it?
I think I meet a lot of people who are like, they focus on the money first. So, you know, they might be popping on, you know, social media, and then they come and like, they don't put the hard work. I don't think there's anyone that I've ever worked with who didn't like work hard. Like, you know, my last podcast was Star Brim, and like that girl worked. Like she worked real hard. Like she was dedicated to her podcast. But, you know, I meet other people who might have like a similar following to her, and they'll come and they'll be like, well, you know, like, where's my check? I'm like you got to put some work in. Like,
exactly.
it ain't.
It's not the flip of a switch.
Yeah, it ain't like, I'm not an ATM. Like, I can't, you know, flip a switch and then like give you like money. Like, you got to put in work. Like, and I think for her, like, right now she's on maternity leave.
Yes,
Right. So, you know, like, she put in work. Like, she was very active with it. I think she came in with the game plan, and I think we executed. And then, you know, she has to take her break, which I you know, I appreciate her for doing that.
Yeah.
You know, like, I had you know, my wife was pregnant. She had to take a break, and like, she could have done it. Like, we definitely like offered, like, if you want to set up like a home studio. But, you know, like, I respect the fact that she's like, no, I'm going to take a break and I'm going to have this baby and, like,
focus on
be a mom, and, like, I'll come back if I come back. And, like, I'm not mad at that.
Yeah,
you know?
Fair, because it's, like, it's a lot. And it's, like, would you rather it be, like, done with, like, less, you know, people being distracted, or it not being to, like, the full potential of which you can, like, direct your energy versus like, you know, kind of like an all or nothing thing. Like, I'd rather direct my energy towards this, and then when I'm ready to come back, or like divide my time, I'd rather do it when I'm ready versus coming back too soon. And I mean, I could talk for another hour about, you know, the state of like how we treat women or parents anyway with like maternity, paternity leave, and like, you know, because having a baby is a lot of work.
Oh, definitely.
So,
because like in my last job, that was like, so I got selected to like be a part of like a group to advocate, and that was like one of my things. So paternity leave was only a week, you know, so I had to like use my own personal time,
which is crazy, right?
So
like, what are you gonna do in that week?
The mothers got, I think, 4 weeks, but that was like one of the things I advocated for. I'm like, 1 week is not enough time. And then so they took my idea, and we came up with the game plan that they'll extend it. So it went from 1 week to 2 weeks, and then from 2 weeks to 4 weeks. And then now, like when I left, it was at 6 weeks for the men and then 8 weeks for the women. So, but yeah, I don't think that sometimes we realize that you need that time. You know, I know I didn't really understand it. But once I seen Dani go through it, and I'm seeing that she's gonna be home with the baby by herself, it's like, nah, I definitely need this time. Like, you know.
Right.
If I waste all my time, I waste all my time. And I don't think, as Dani said, I don't think we kind of talk about those. We like, it's always been like the social norm is that the woman does it and the father just goes to work. But as a father, you should want to be there for your for the mother of your child. You should want to make sure that she's mentally able to, you know, care for the child. So.
Right.
So I mean, so like to your point, like I could definitely also see and respect that, like her decision to like take a break, because you want to be committed to what you're doing ultimately, like you want to put your best foot forward, and you want to be like the best representation of yourself.
It's also a business, which I don't think a lot of people understand. Like, this is like, I'm not at the studio to have fun with you.
Yeah.
Like, I'm in a different place in my life. Like, I don't like that stuff. Doesn't impress me. Like, you drinking a lot of bottles, you smoking weed, like.
Like, it's a job. Like,
it's a job. Like, I'm here. Like, I could be at home, you know, like.
With your family.
Yeah, like, you know, hugging my wife in bed. Like, I don't have to be here. So I don't think a lot of people go into that with that mind frame. Like, this is a business. And also, like, we got to talk money. Like, at first, like, I think this is a big problem in our communities where, like, people wait for something to get hot start making money from it, and they're like, well, what's the splits? And then that's where the problems happen. I'm like, have that convo like now.
Early on.
Have it now. Like, figure out where everyone stands. Don't wait until it's high, and then everyone has like problems because they feel like they're owed more than they really are. So I'm like, have
those conversations.
be an adult. Like, it's an uncomfortable conversation, but be an adult and like, let's talk. Because like, I think money is what ruins a lot of shows as well. Because they'll get this money. People will feel like, well, I did 80% of the work, and others will feel like, well, no, I did it. And then, then you're beefing over dumb stuff when like the bag is here, like go get that money. Because this, I tell this to a lot of people, it's like a short window for this. Like, you might be hot this summer, and then you're like
not
you're not like at the end of the summer. Like there's a few shows that have longevity, and like we know those shows. Like, I think one that I see probably like from our circle who's gonna have like a real longevity is Joe. Like Button's gonna have one, just because that show's it's easy to produce because it's just like those guys in that room
shooting the shit.
Shooting the shit. And Joe's like a veteran. He's like retired from rapping, so I want to hear him talk about like rap shit. And those other guys like Rory's, he's in the music industry. Maul has his connections. Park's an engineer. But it's like there's that window. Like, there's a lot of shows that are hot now that like they're slowly declining.
Do you think it's like those shows that have like a real like niche, like the ones that are like kind of very specific as far as like the brands or the content that they cover are the ones that like could be like here today, gone tomorrow? Or do you think it's more so like the ones that are like very broad? Because like, I mean, a lot of shows are like very like pop culture oriented, which is like easy because there's always pop culture fodder and everything like that. But like, in your experience, do you think that there are those ones that are very specific or very broad, or the ones that are like more here today, gone tomorrow? I
think you gotta consider the audience. Like, there's a reason why there's like a new boy band every year. It's because that audience is here.
They grow up,
and then they're not here anymore. So I think you gotta think of terms of like, who's your audience, and then what do you want to do? Like, maybe this is just a jumping point to do movies or to do something else, TV music.
Got it.
Just like, I tell when I work with people, I'm like, be realistic with this. Like, are we going to make a lot of money with this? Maybe not. Like, are we going to have fun? Yeah. Are you going to maybe use this as a jumping point to like something else? Like, and I've had people where I've recorded, there's like a bunch of pilots like sitting on my hard drive of like shows from like, you name it, who are like, this is not going to work. Like, this is not.
Yeah, I think people. Yeah, I think people don't think about what goes into it, because and I think it's funny you talk about that, and that's what makes you the perfect guest for our 100th episode, because TJ and I have had to like make those decisions of like, you know what, like we have to make the commitment to do this every week, because there's days, and not even just because like we're married and sometimes we're like not seeing it for each other, whatever, but just sometimes like, because we're doing this and trying to make this, be committed to it and do it consistently, but then also still like doing our actual jobs and being married and having a child and like all the other responsibilities that come with it. But at the same time, we don't want to have like a half-assed product every week. So like, when we talk about like making those decisions, like with Starbrim, like when this past summer, at the beginning of the summer, TJ had weight loss surgery. At the end of the summer, I had the weight loss surgery, and I worked over the summer. And so I kind of made this like unilateral decision of like, okay, we're going to scale it back to bi-weekly episodes versus weekly, because we are not like, we were going places, we're doing things. It's the summertime where, so I'm like, it's just not feasible right now. And as opposed to putting out like shitty, short weekly episodes, let's just do good bi-weekly episodes, and then we'll come back to weekly in the in the summer. And I get like why people do seasons sometimes, because sometimes sometimes it's like, I feel like I don't have shit to talk about, and I'd rather it be like good than not, but also like to make it still feasible in that like, okay, we're not just gonna like drop off the face of the earth. We're going to talk about it. We're going to announce it. We're going to come up with a plan and then come back to it. So I definitely can get that and that like frustration, because I think sometimes people think it's like easy, which comes back to how there's only like 6 episodes where people will do and then they fall off the face of the earth, they quit. And then I also laugh at it because the first thing you said was like, your father-in-law said don't fight about money, and I'm like, people need to fight about money when it comes to this thing too,
Right.
and then that also is why things don't always last.
But nothing worth it is ever easy.
Yeah,
Exactly. That's what I tell my students all the time.
Yeah.
Like, nothing easily attained is like, it's like nothing worth having is easily attained.
But the
Have to bust
transparency,
your ass.
I think, helps because you may have started it thinking we're going to do it this way, and then, like you said, you blow up. But you never talked about. Yeah, I never talked about the what ifs, and I think sometimes we fail to do that. We fail to think as big as we possibly think, as far as like, what if we do blow up? How are we going to do this? How are we going to make those actions? And then, you know, or what if our idea is amazing but our execution is terrible, and now, you know, our friendship is ended, or, you know, so stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times people don't have those full conversations and really like map it out.
And I've done the same thing too. Like with Taxstone, like we didn't have that combo. You know, we didn't have that combo, and then the show blew up, and then we had that combo, and then it was like, okay, like it was. I was working myself up. I'm like, man, I don't know, like this is bad. Like we should have talked about this. And he was like real smooth. He's like, yo, this is what it is, and it was like more than fair. To the point where like I had a lot of respect for him, but after that conversation, I'm like, wow, like I can see he values my opinion. He like trusts what I'm doing with him, just from what the splits were.
Yeah.
You know.
Because
So
you have value and you...
yeah, and like I knew like we were cool, like we're friends, but you know, it wasn't until that point where it was like, oh, like he values me as
Like he
like,
really fucks with you.
as
I
a
get it.
producer of his show, and this is how he's showing
The
me.
professional side of things. Like,
Yeah.
this is not just like we're friends, but
Yeah.
this is like
Right.
I have professional
Right.
worth as well, and
Right.
he is compensating me
Right.
as such.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's hard sometimes because sometimes people don't. Sometimes people use that like we're friends, so I shouldn't have to. And you know,
Do it on the arm.
yeah. And one thing as I've gotten older, if my friends do stuff, I'm just gonna support you regardless. Like my brother started DJing, so when we had our live show, he DJ'd. I gave him money, and he wasn't expecting it. But my thing is just, you could have been home. You could have been home doing whatever. So I want to
sitting
pay
in the
you
audience,
because at the end of the
right.
day, even though you're my brother, you're doing something for me. So you know, I definitely understand that. That's definitely, we definitely need to remember that when you have someone doing something for you or working for you, pay them for their time, and don't look at it as this is my friend. So instead of me going 50-50, I'll give him a little bit of money. He should be happy.
Right.
No, like respect them.
Yeah,
Respect
you got to
them.
take care of those.
Yeah.
Because they could have been doing something else too.
Because I remember I told someone I respect, like in the industry, like what it was, and he was like, "Whoa, like I wouldn't have expected that."
But that's what I think that's so crucial and important, is like making sure that people, because that's the other reason why you keep quality people who are very good at what they do around, when you compensate them for their time and their expertise. And you know, it's important across any field, you know. And like and even though, you know, my primary hat is an educator, like, and I'm making this shift, I'm being compensated for it. And sometimes, you know, you feel like a little bit of like that imposter syndrome, but then I have to also sometimes remind myself, like, no, actually, Dani, like, you are good at what you do, because it reflects in like your evaluations, it reflects in your kids' learning, it reflects in your relationships, and you should be compensated as such. But then you want to switch gears to like this podcasting thing too. I think like TJ's point, like having those and your point as well, having those conversations up front, because he and I have talked about that. We're like, okay, well, where do we want this to go? And we've kind of come to the agreement that if things one day go somewhere, great. If they don't, and it's just something that TJ and I do as our way of spending quality time, and
Right.
like, so be it.
That's
but, you
worth
know,
it.
It's worth it too.
Yeah.
And so it's just like we've kind of looked at it from the what ifs of like the two very different ends of the spectrum, but we were like on the same page about those things. And we know also too, like, don't fight about money or things like that, because luckily I feel like for us, if anything were to become like profitable from this,
Sorry about that.
it would be, it comes to the same basket because we're together. But to
Golly.
just, listen, you know what?
Go
You
ahead.
be giving
Yell at
me
me.
so much
can yell at me,
shit.
Danny.
My phone vibrates.
You
and
can
he
yell
gives
at
me
me.
the fucking
You're unprofessional
blues.
right now.
Right? Right? So
You can yell at me, Danny. Go
I know,
ahead.
because I'm not going to yell at you because I always give you grace, but I'm going to hold you accountable because had this been the shoe on the other foot,
You're right.
he would have looked at me like I had 8 fucking heads.
I would've.
'Cause my phone would be on the table and it'll go psst once, and he'd be like, "Come on, Danny."
But that happens like every week.
No, it doesn't.
It really does,
You're
though.
a liar.
It's all right.
Anyway,
I'll take that, though.
So we're gonna start to kind of wind things down, and
We could just go to the last question.
I guess our last words or question for you, is, with that being said, what, in your expertise in this field, what advice or wise words would you have for those who are trying to carve out a space for themselves in this very presently oversaturated landscape that is podcasting? So what would you say to those who are just getting started out or kind of still at it, because you have an experience and a perspective that not very many people have?
Right. You think the podcasting is oversaturated?
I think yes and no. I think that there's if you go on Apple, you'll see any and everything on there.
Right.
But I think it's oversaturated for people that are jumping in and into the landscape. But then there's less people who are keeping it up and going. But
Would you say YouTube's oversaturated?
Oh, okay. I never thought about
It's
it
a
like
different
that.
perspective, yeah.
Because I would say I want to say yes and no. Because there's no end to the number of kids videos that Tatum scroll
Exactly.
through, but they still get they are popping because it's little kids watch stuff over and over again. So no, I would say no. YouTube isn't oversaturated, but I guess sometimes maybe it felt like podcasting was, but with that perspective, then maybe not.
I think it feels oversaturated on social media. Because I think the way people promote is the same way. It's I'm going to post a link, I'm going to post a picture, or, that's how it is on Instagram. But I think quality will always beat out that. I think if you have quality product, then I want to listen to it.
Got it.
Doesn't mean it's going to necessarily blow up, because there's a lot of quality shows that don't do phenomenal numbers, but it's a dope show and I'll be tuned in. But I think just being consistent, if you drop every Monday, don't drop on Tuesday, be very consistent with that. Because I think we've been conditioned to expect things when they happen, when they're supposed to be delivered. And I think for podcasting, that's
crucial.
Yeah, it's crucial. And I would get, I would get DMs sometimes, be like, yo, why isn't this episode
out?
And I'm like, yo, I don't know you. Yo, I don't know who you are.
Jonathan Mena, what is happening?
Yeah.
Y'all, you know that. Y'all always drop on this day. What's going on?
Yeah.
We've had that. You're right, because we've had a few moments here and there where we've had to drop a day late or something like that because life happens. But we've been very communicative with the people who are very consistent listeners on our platform, and for the most part it's been okay. But also too, because that's not a regular occurrence. It's okay, some shit went left, or the baby got sick or whatever, and but we still put something out, or we being communicative. But I think that's true. Consistency is key, which is you know what, I'm gonna pat ourselves on the back because we've been consistent since 2017, and it's true. And it means a lot, and it lets us know. I guess I appreciate that because it affirms what we've already kind of been feeling. But from somebody who's a veteran in this game, it affirms what we've already kind of sensed. But it's good, and then also that other people hear that from you, because then you're coming from this lineage and this blueprint that people are following to this day, and if you say that, then it just means all that much more. So thank you.
Yeah, I think you should understand the game. If you're trying to make money off this, understand the industry. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Hot Pod. It's a newsletter. It's the industry newsletter.
Not at all.
Yeah, it's free. You can subscribe to it. I think it comes out every Tuesday. Yeah, I think that's a great resource to kind of break down what's going on in the industry.
Gotta write that.
Yeah, write that down.
Write it down.
Yeah,
Right.
shout out to Nick Qua. He's a good person to know. He's on Twitter. I forget his handle, but he's there. I think you just have to understand the industry and be realistic. Like I said, if if you're not here, if you're here to kind of like give your opinion and have fun, like do that. But if you're really like trying to monetize this, then you got to come up with a game plan, because like the majors are here, like the Spotify's, they just acquired Ringer like on Tuesday. You know, yeah, like they're here. They're here to make money. Like
Exactly.
this is a business for them. This is not, you know.
And it may not be as oversaturated as I thought it to be.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so I think the at least for me, it's just because, like you said, social media. Like I'll be on like Facebook, and one of my friends like come up with a new podcast, and then it's like everyone I know is like it's just dropping, it's just coming out with one. But I never thought about it from the other perspective. So
Right.
that's crazy.
well, we'll have to look into that. Look, thank you
Mind
for
blown.
dropping gems on us.
Yeah, no
We're
doubt.
always ready to,
That's what I'm here
willing to
for.
learn. But I think with that being said, we're going to wrap this sucker up. Thank you, Jonathan Mena.
Yeah, you're welcome.
We
Thank you.
truly
100
appreciate-
episodes in.
Yeah,
Yes, like this
This
is. We
is-
are grateful and thankful and happy to have had you, because you know, and sharing your experience with us, and you know, we're looking forward to it.
yeah.
And hopefully, you know, you'll tune into us and let us know and give us feedback too, because we always
I
welcome
will.
that. Thank
I
you.
will.
Well, with that being said, we've reached yet another episode. of
Another
Lovers Quarrel.
episode. Yeah.
Episode 100.
Shout out to you.
Shout out to you, sir.
No, I'm regular. I couldn't do without you.
Same here. You're the brains behind that. I'm just the talent, you know.
You are the talent.
But okay, fine.
I'm agreeing with you.
But with that being said, you know that you can always follow us on Instagram at Lovers Quarrel Show, on Twitter at Lovers Quarrel 7.
And then where?
Email us with your questions, concerns, comments, anything in between at loversquarrelshow@gmail.com. And as always, I am your girl, Dani.
And I'm your guy, TJ.
And you know that we've us.
We fight, but we love. Bye.
Dope. Yo, I'm going to just run to the bathroom.
Yes.